So, this is an introduction to Bhagavad Gita and Vedanta in general. So, Vedanta is basically the Upanishadic or the philosophical part of the Vedas. So, and Bhagavad Gita and Vedas all were somewhat composed by Ved Vyas. He's considered an avatar or Bhagwan. So the things that he did were like classifying the Vedas into four: the Rig, Yajur, Sama, and Atharvana Veda, out of which there are two different sections or like two classes of content in it. The Veda Purva, or the ritualistic part of the Vedas, which generally tend to give a person rewards in exchange with the rituals. And the other part is Vedanta. That's the Upanishadic or the philosophical part that helps achieve one Atmagyana, or like the knowledge of existence. This is the first thing that Ved Vyas did, classification of Vedas. The next thing that he did is he wrote 18 Puranas. Basically, what he did was he put in all the essence of Brahma Vidya or Atmagyana or knowledge of the Supreme in the form of stories in these Puranas. He also wrote Mahabharata. It's considered history, Mahabharata is, and it has like 1 lakh shlokas, and it's considered as the Pancham Veda or the fifth Veda. So, Srimad Bhagavad Gita is a very important and a crucial part of Mahabharata. Mahabharata is considered to be like 5,000 years old. Ved Vyas also wrote the Brahma Sutras. So, the Brahma Sutras are kind of sutras or aphorisms that explain the contradictory statements of Upanishads. So, these are the major four things that Ved Vyas did. Coming to Vedanta, as we already discussed, Vedanta is the knowledge or the jnana part of the Vedas. And Vedanta, to get into Vedanta, aspirant or a spiritual seeker must go through the three prominent things that Vedanta has. Those are called the Prasthana Traya, three basic classification of scriptures. So the first one is Bhagavad Gita. Next is you go to Upanishads. Out of the Upanishads, there are 11 primary Upanishads on which Adi Shankaracharya wrote the commentaries, and the third one is Brahma Sutra. So these are the three pillars of Vedanta. So going forward, I mean, like you would ask, what's the purpose of this thing, Vedanta, and what? So according to the scriptures, the goals of human life or human beings are classified into four different parts. They are called four Purusharthas. First one being dharma, then is artha, then is kama, and the final one is moksha. So dharma is basically doing your duty and maintaining harmony in the society. Artha is again earning wealth to maintain family. Kama is fulfilling dharmic desires. So these three are basically the path to attain prosperity. So dharma is the seed in both artha and kama. So dharma must be followed with in accordance to the society, to your right morality. Artha and kama must be fulfilled. The final one is moksha. Moksha is basically the freedom from bondage to body and mind. So once you attain prosperity, then the next part is in general for the attainment of moksha, for be or to become free from the bondage of body and mind. So that's where Vedanta comes in picture. It helps to lead a fulfilling and goal based life in which your direct goal is always moksha. Even in your dharma, artha, and kama, your target is always towards moksha. Consider it like this: moksha is the terrace of a building, and the other three, dharma, artha, kama, are the stairs. So these stairs help you reach the terrace, and Vedanta tells you in a proper and a scientific way to go to the terrace. Then Vedanta talks that one principle and universal goal that everyone is striving for is enjoying of happiness and removal of sorrow. which in Sanskrit is called as Atyantika Dukkha Nivritti and Paramananda Prapti. This is the goal of every human being, like enjoying happiness, achieving the supreme state of bliss, and removing all the sorrows that are in the life. So, Katha Upanishad is a primal Upanishad, one of the principal ones, and it's really nice. So, it explains about the concept of dosha trayam, three defects in seeking happiness from external world. Why the way that we seek happiness is not the right way. So, the three primary defects are: the first one is dukkha mishritatvam. So life is a mixture of joy and sorrow. You can't always only have joy. Second is atrupti karatvam. That is not total fulfillment from external world. You can never get a complete sense of fulfillment from this external world. And the third one is bandhakatvam. Objects and beings, anything external, always tend to create a bondage. So these are the three defects why you can't achieve what you want, the happiness or the blissfulness, and why you can't avoid sorrow or like pain. So next segment is so the next part is essence of the Vedic teaching is basically for moksha, that is for the freedom from sorrow. So based on a very little analysis, we can see that it's very difficult. It's impossible to get all the happiness from external world. So the Vedantas or the Vedic teaching asks us and keeps on pointing back to us that we should always look within the mind and try to discover Brahman, find or discover that Brahma is Satyam and Jagat is Mithya, Jivo Brahmaiva na Paraha. This is a famous shloka that says Brahma Satyam Jagan Mithya, Jivo Brahmaiva na Paraha, Anena Vedyam Sachastramiti Vedanta Dindi Maha. So the meaning of this shloka is Brahma is truth, the world of objects and beings is false, and the egocentric sense of separativeness of the jiva, that is what we are, is itself in fact nothing other than Brahman. That is the only one that exists. So the existence that we see as name and forms is basically nothing other than Brahman. That by which this truth is known is the truest science, the science of sciences. Thus roars Vedanta. That is what Vedanta keeps on saying us every time we get into it. So Vedanta gives us the supreme divine knowledge. It tells us to know Jiva, Jagat, Ishvara and realize Brahman, the substratum of creation. Substratum behind the names and forms and whatever we see and experience is just this one thing that is called Brahman by the Vedanta. Now coming back to Bhagavad Gita. So Bhagavad Gita has two major goals. It's a yoga shastra that teaches techniques to lead a happy life, and Brahma Vidya, the core of my personality. What's the substratum beneath this physical existence? That's what is being taught by Bhagavad Gita. There is another Purana, famous Purana. It's called Srimad Bhagavatam or Bhagavata Purana. That's something that teaches you Brahma Vidya by using stories and concepts and philosophies. And the background of that Purana is that that was told to someone who was about to die in 7 days. And within 7 days, that person realized his immortal nature and realized Brahman and was free then and there from this bondage of body and mind. So there's a general saying that Srimad Bhagavatam or Bhagavad Purana teaches you the art of dying, and Bhagavad Gita is something that teaches you the art of living, the techniques to lead a happy life. So you can consider or like think of Bhagavad Gita as a manual that tells you how to live life and know truth about your own self. Self effort and Bhagwan's grace or God's grace, these are the two important factors that are required in life to exist, to live a fulfilling, happy life, and to know the truth about oneself. It can be compared to like a chariot that needs two wheels to run. These are the two wheels. One is your effort, the other one is the supreme, that's the substratum. It's grace. I'll just go through two of the shlokas of Bhagavad Gita. One shloka is Uddharet Atmanatmanam Natamanam Avasadayet Atmaiva Hyatmano Bandhu Atmaiva Ripuratmanaha. This is the fifth shloka of the sixth chapter of Bhagavad Gita that tells you that let a man lift himself by his own self alone and let him not lower himself, for this self alone is the friend of oneself and this self is the enemy of oneself. So, another shloka I want to quote that goes like this Teshamaham samudharta मृत्यु संसार सागरात भवामि न चिरत पार्थ maya veshi taschetasam is the seventh shloka of chapter 12. So it goes like, for them whose mind are set on me, verily I become ere long, O Partha, the Savior, to save them out of the ocean of finite experiences, the samsara. So these two gives us a basic idea that we only can help ourselves and we only can improve or lift ourselves higher, and God alone can help us and be graceful to us to go in that path. So Gita teaches how to maintain equanimity of mind in all situations of life. That is called samatvam in Sanskrit. So one of the core things that Gita tries to tell you is samatvam. Don't be disturbed by pain or pleasure. Just be equanimous in all situations of life. Again, like major commentaries of Bhagavad Gita do divide it into three different parts, the first six chapters and the next six, because there are like 18 chapters. So there are like three shatakams or shatkams, so six chapters each. The first six is called prathama, that dwells with the tvam aspect of jiva, or basically the jiva swarupam, that explains how a jiva should live a life, how one should do karma, or how one should work. The Madhyama segment, that's basically a chapter from 7 to 12, that explains the tat part of the Mahavakya, Tattvamasi. Last six, chapter 13 to 18, explains the Asi aspect of the Mahavakya, oneness between Jiva and Ishvara. So it's a Mahavakya from, I guess, Chandogya Upanishad, Tattvamasi. It's a very famous one that tries, Tat means Jiva or we as body and mind, as in this existence. The next is Tat. Tat is Ishvara or God, the personal God. And Asi is basically equating both me and the God. That's what the Mahavakya does, and that's what Gita does. The first six chapters, it tries to explain how a jiva should exist, jiva should lead a life, how he should do nishkama karma, and how he should lead a fulfilling and purified life. First six chapter karma yoga helps us to purify our mind. The next is the bhakti yoga that helps establish the base for the Ishvara, the Swarupa of the Ishvara. And the last six chapters, the second six is basically the Bhakti Yoga, and the last six is the Jnana Yoga that tries to establish a connection between Jiva and Ishvara. And finally, it equates Jiva to Ishvara. Not in the direct sense, but there is a concept called Lakshartha that tries to point the substratum behind the jiva and the substratum behind the ishvara, and it tries to say that they are the same and one thing. So this is a general overview. Going forward, I might come out with new explanations or new things or